Picture this. You are the captain of a Japanese supply ship in the Pacific, 1943. The horizon is empty. Then a B-25 Mitchell drops to wave height and opens fire. 14 guns, all pointing straight at you. You have about 3 seconds. This is how a medium bomber became the deadliest ground attack aircraft of the entire war. It started with one man in a New Guinea hangar with a welding torch. Major Paul Pappy Gunn stood in a New Guinea hangar in early 1942, looking at a problem no textbook had solved. B-25 crews were flying standard medium-altitude bombing runs from 10,000 to 12,000 feet directly into walls of Japanese anti-aircraft fire and Zero interceptors. At that altitude, you are slow, you are predictable, and you are a target. Bombers were intercepted long before they reached their targets, with losses sometimes exceeding 1/3 of the attacking force in a single mission. The stock B-25 had a glass bombardier's nose, a handful of defensive guns, and a doctrine designed for Europe. The Pacific did not care about doctrine. When General George Kenney took command of the 5th Air Force in the summer of 1942, he backed Gunn's radical solution: rip out the bombardier's nose and pack it with heavy machine guns instead. Working with Jack Fox, North American Aviation's field technical representative, Gunn fabricated streamlined gun pods containing pairs of 50 caliber machine guns and bolted them to each side of the fuselage below the cockpit windows. The extreme vibration from muzzle blast required reinforced metal skin around the pods and additional bracing between the fuselage and the engine nacelles to keep the wings from being torn apart by recoil forces. This was not a clean factory job. It was improvised, violent engineering done under wartime pressure in a field depot. Here's the core logic, and it's simple once you see it. There were 8 forward-firing 50 caliber Browning M2 machine guns in the nose, supported by more guns mounted on the sides, top, and tail. The pilot aimed the entire aircraft like a rifle. No gunner, no communication lag, no parallax error. Just point the nose and pull the trigger. At 300 yards, 8 synchronized 50 caliber guns deliver roughly 6,000 rounds per minute into a single point. Nothing on a ship's deck could survive long enough to shoot back. When Gunn's modified B-25s first flew low-level attack missions, the results shocked even Kenney. The guns alone were not the revolution. It was what pilots learned to do with them that made Japanese commanders call it the most feared aircraft in the Pacific. Gunn basically turned a bomber into a giant flying rifle. So here's a quick one. If you were a pilot in 1943, would you rather fly the stock B-25 at altitude or take Gunn's stripped-down strafer low over the deck? Drop your answer in the comments below. Now let's get into exactly what those guns did when they hit a Japanese convoy at wave height. Now, with the verified facts in hand, let me write the final body section. March 3rd, 1943. A Japanese convoy of 8 destroyers, 8 transport ships, and 6,900 troops is pushing through the Bismarck Sea toward New Guinea. The deck gunners are ready. The escort fighters are circling. By every conventional measure, this convoy should make it through. Then the B-25 strafers arrive at mast height, and the guns open up before the ships can react. Here is why the forward firepower made the whole attack possible. Skip bombing, the technique where a pilot releases a bomb just above the waterline and lets it skip across the surface like a flat stone before detonating against a hull, only works if you can fly low enough to execute it. And you can only fly that low if every gunner on that ship's deck is already dead or diving for cover. Without those forward-firing 50 caliber guns clearing the deck on the approach run, the pilots would have been shredded before they ever reached release point. The guns were not just weapons. They were the reason the bombs could land at all. The results were catastrophic for Japan. All 8 transports went to the bottom. 4 destroyers were sunk. Of the nearly 7,000 troops who were supposed to reinforce New Guinea, fewer than 1,200 actually reached Lae, and most of those arrived without weapons, without supplies, and without any combat readiness. General Kenny's 5th Air Force had effectively severed Japan's ability to move soldiers by sea in the Southwest Pacific. After the Bismarck Sea, Japanese commanders made an official decision. No more large convoys to Lae or into waters dominated by Allied aircraft. Not just a tactical adjustment, a fundamental shift in how Japan could move troops in the Southwest Pacific. That's the verdict on the 14-gun B-25. It wasn't excess firepower bolted onto a medium bomber for shock value. It was the precise solution to a precise problem: fly low enough to guarantee a hit, suppress fast enough to survive the approach, and concentrate enough lead that nothing on deck could answer back. The Japanese never developed a counter. The strafer B-25 didn't just win engagements, it strangled a supply chain, isolated a theater, and proved that in the Pacific Air War, firepower concentration was the only doctrine that mattered. Subscribe to World War's Files channel for more deep dives into the weapons that decided World War II. Watch the deadliest World War II handguns next.